Alan Sugar. Now, he's a cocky, cockney London barrow boy, isn't he? Lots of fingers in lots of pies. Never one to not jump on the technology bandwagon to make a quick buck. In the early 1990s, Alan noticed that people were playing these newfangled things called games consoles and leaving their home computers behind. And off the back of his success with his CPC range of computers, this gave him an idea. He launches a games console to the masses based on the 8-bit Z80 CPU. Yep, the same CPU that had been powering our lovely home computers since, 1980 or something? What was he thinking? Let's take a look at the Amstrad GX4000 Battlestar 7000X CPC spaceship looking console thingy, or whatever it's called. In 1990, we were about to enter the fourth generation of consoles, otherwise known as the 16-bit era. The PC Engine was already released in Japan, and we were about to get the SNES and the Genesis, or as us Brits would know it, the Mega Drive. And of course we had our beloved Amiga and STs. Things were moving on and away from the older bit 8-bit machines that had served us so well. Now let's not forget that Amstrad had recently acquired the Spectrum lineup of machines from Sir Clive Sinclair, and Amstrad were coming out with the new Plus 2 and Plus 3 models. Most of us who knew our stuff, however, knew these machines were based on aging technology. Gamers wanted Amigas and Super Nintendos. Amstrad decided it wanted a slice of this console market as well, and created a system based on its existing technology, the CPC range of computers, that was of course powered by the Z80 CPU. Now, I happen to be very fond indeed of Amstrad's CPC range of computers. I love them to bits, and we have a 464 and a 6128 here in the shed. But this was 1990, time was moving on, and those machines were seriously getting old in the tooth. So the rationale must have gone a little something like this. We already have a range of 8-bit computers, right? So we already have a massive library of games, right? So why not create a console based on the same technology as those computers so that they have access to the same library of games? It makes sense, I suppose. Great idea? No. Bad idea. Reason being that all these old games came on cassette or a 3-inch disc. The GX4000 console didn't have a cassette port, it had a cartridge slot. Right, so why don't we get all these old games and chuck them onto a cartridge instead? Great idea. No. Bad idea. Cassettes are dirt cheap, cartridges are damn expensive to make and sell. So in effect, what you're getting is similar software, but on a much more expensive format. No, this was not a good idea. And of course, the other large problem that I've touched upon is the underlying technology. The Z80 was an outdated CPU. This console could only produce 160x200 resolution with 16 colours in Mode 0. Mode 1 offered 300x200 with 4 colours, and Mode 2 offered 640x200 with only 2 colours. Not great at all. Sound was produced by the General Instruments AY38910 chip that was also used in many 8-bit computers of the time. See, the problem with Amstrad was that it was never a high-end quality consumer brand like, Technics, Sony or Panasonic. Sir Alan once famously said that he only made products for truck drivers and their wives, who were out on a Sunday afternoon looking for something to buy. Build 'em cheap, flog 'em cheap. That was his mantra, and it did make him an awful lot of money. The GX4000 was launched in 1990 at a price of $99.99. It was also launched in France, Spain and Italy, as well as the UK. Many games were announced for it, including Outrun, which ironically never got released. Guess what? It didn't sell. And why would it? It was far too little, too late. This little machine only sold 15,000 units. A version of Ghosts and Goblins was made for it in 2018, however, so there are people still interested in this little curiosity. Gamers are a savvy bunch. They always have been, and it was obvious to me, even at the tender age of 19, that this was an underpowered waste of money. It was outdated before it even hit the shelves. Let's look at the machine, starting with those very Nintendo-like controllers. Not much thought has gone into the design of these. Considering it was the time when controllers were undergoing a revolution with sleeker designs, more buttons and more rounded corners, not a lot of thought have gone into these controllers at all. To me, the console itself looks like a cross between a Cylon Raider, of the original 80s Battlestar of course, and a bad prop from Star Trek. Probably why they choose to feature it as some sort of spaceship in the cringeworthy TV advert. Supports include an audio out socket, 2 Atari 9-pin style controller connectors, 1 analog controller port which is supposed to be IBM standard. It's got a light gun connector on this RJ11 socket here, audio and RGB video output on an 8-pin DIN, and also it includes a standard SCART socket, and it also has a modulator in it for RF output. This machine is very much an underdog, and it's quite interesting to look at it today. I never knew anyone that owned one back then, and I hardly know anyone that's got one now. This one has been loaned to me kindly from Carl James from the Retro Computer Museum in Leicester with a multi-cartridge. Thanks, Carlos, much appreciated. Let's take a look at this wonderful little machine. Right, so I thought we'd kick off with Burning Rubber. This was the game that actually shipped with the console. Let's see if it's any good. So it's a really hot day in the shed, so I've got the door open, so if you can hear any ambient noise, kids playing, birds, that's why. It's really, really warm in here. For an 8-bit console, I'm impressed with the visuals on this. It does look quite good. It does look more like an Amiga or an ST or a 16-bit kind of game. It's quite fluid, it's quite smooth. The card does feel like it weighs 20 tons and is as sluggish as hell, because when you turn, it takes a few seconds for the car to respond, and it's very, very sluggish. The longer you hold the left or the right, the sharper the turn is. But if you need to change lanes quickly or turn quickly, you've got no chance. But it's quite smooth, it does look quite good. I mean, when you consider this console is 8-bit technology, it's a Z80, it certainly looks nicer than, I don't know, Outrun did on the Amstrad back in the day. It's not too bad. What you've got to remember though, this was 1990, and really by then people were expecting a bit more from their consoles than what we have here. I mean, the PC Engine had been out a good few years at this point, and that would absolutely walk all over this. So it's not bad, it looks okay. Who are those faces? Are they the developers, I wonder? It's just random faces on billboards at the side of the road. I like the fact that you can't just go flat out, because you're going to come flying off at the first bend. This is a game I used to love on the Amiga. Quirky thing, but really good fun to play. This is Pang. And it looks quite impressive. The sound obviously is not up to Amiga standards, but quite a nice version of Pang this is. This is Navy SEALs, another visually impressive game. Right, another game on the top 10 list is Pro Tennis Tour, which is what this is. Now, I am normally useless at games like this. Apart from the fact that I haven't got a clue what I'm doing, it doesn't look too bad. Is that me winning the serve there? I don't know. No idea. So here's Barbarian 2, and this, interestingly, looks like a port of the CPC version, because at the beginning of the game it says choose whether I wanted to use a keyboard or a joystick. Yeah, this is definitely a port, isn't it? Because I would have thought this machine is capable of better visuals than this. Here's Batman the Movie, blatantly another Amstrad CPC game. One thing about Amstrad visuals, they were always very colourful, weren't they? You could always spot an Amstrad game a mile away. It's quite colourful. It definitely looks like an Amstrad game, that's for sure. It's quite a colourful version of Rainbow Islands here. Vertical scrolling's a bit jerky. I was waiting for the chest to appear and open. It doesn't look like they've got that in this version. Yeah, that scrolling's making me feel a bit sick, actually. This is Robocop 2, supposed to be one of the better games on the console. Okay, so although I'm no good at it whatsoever, this looks quite nice. It almost looks Amiga quality, if not better. Now, if only all the games looked as good as this. This is Fire and Forget 2, which doesn't look like a port. It looks like it was coded for the machine. What about that? Looks quite nice. Very colourful. Oh, you can take off as well. Cool. So just kill everybody else on the road with you. So there you have it. There's the Amstrad GX4000. What do I think of it? I think it's a curiosity that some retro gamers are going to want in their collection. Not me. It's not really something that I would feel like going out and buying, to be honest with you. I think it would have been alright. It would have been a good console, I think, if it was released 3 or 4 years earlier. Probably when the CPC 464 and 6128 was doing the rounds, it would have been a good, cheaper alternative than going out and buying, you know, the whole computer system. But it's too little too late, I think. You know, there were much better systems on the market in 1990, and this certainly would not have got a look in, I don't think, and that's probably why it failed. It was sold for less than a year. It was off the market less than a year after it went out there. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed that look at the Amstrad GX4000. So stay safe. We're still, I think we're in week 6 of lockdown here in the UK, so stay safe, look after yourselves, and we'll catch you again very soon. Thank you for joining me in the Retro Shed. Take care now. Bye bye.
I'm bored.